welcome to, I guess this is our third webinar this year, third quarter webinar. We're excited for those of you that can join us and those of you that will be watching hopefully in the next week or two. We just have a few items that we're going to cover today, and we'll kind of go through the list that I emailed out last week, and we'll kind of start with curriculum training. And those of you that are online, if you'd like to add any comments or questions, you can type in the questions or you can turn on your microphone and we can all hear you. So does anyone have any questions related to the changes that we made with curriculum? I guess it was in end of April, 1st of May.
Right.
We made quite a few changes. We also recorded a video where Sean explained all of those changes in detail. Let me know if you have any questions that we can discuss today, and we'll try and review some of those.
And I think they can do that by chat, by typing in the chat, correct?
Yeah, or they can turn on their microphone.
So just to review just a few of the changes, because I won't go over what we did in all of the video, but we changed quite a bit of the flow, and it's really important to go in and review all of the notes, because as we went through and changed some of the flow in the training, we tried to make sure that you're building on the concepts as you move along. Keep in mind that Discover is a breadth course and the others are depth courses. So you want to make sure that you understand the flow so that we're not bringing up concepts before we're actually ready to train on those concepts. So I think, do they have access to every course regardless of whether they're a facilitator? So I would go through every one of them, regardless of whether you're certified to facilitate them or not. I would go through them, because then you will understand how we're building on these concepts in each one of them. We've significantly increased the amount of facilitator notes in each one of the slides, but you will need to study them so that you're prepared with the examples that you're going to give them that bring these concepts to life and show them how they actually apply out in the real world. So please make sure you go through each one of those, study them, and give us feedback. The feedback is so critical to what we do and the changes that we make, and we just can't do it without it. And I know Amy will talk about this a little bit more from the attendee perspective as she talks about evaluations, but we need them from the facilitators as well. What can we do to enhance the experience of the attendees in the workshop? So please go through the video. Please give us feedback. We look forward to receiving it. Don't worry about hurting our feelings. You won't. We're just trying to make it the best that we can for the work that you do.
Let me just add a couple of thoughts. I've had the opportunity of going through two workshops now of the revised Enable, Improve, Align flow, and both I am very pleased with the improvements we've made. A lot of you over the years since I became the executive director 3 years ago have said we need more meat in these workshops. I think we've put more meat in there. We need a better way of building the workshop. I think we've revised the flow. A lot of you have said, please put in notes so we understand what we're supposed to be doing with each of the slides. We've put notes in there. So very pleased to see the progress that we've made with curriculum. So thank you. Looks like the Al-Fadi folks want to say something. Is that why they popped up?
I think the one other thing that we're doing currently is working on a 3-day version. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that, Amy. On the 3-day version of the Improve workshop, as you know, 5 principles. So one of the things we're looking at is how do we add in the right type of simulations into those workshops to enhance the learning of the attendees. So we're currently working on that. We should have that out soon to where you'll be able to provide either a 2-day or a 3-day version with the simulations that were certainly examples of simulations. I know many of you have your own, but they help critically in some of the areas, especially when we talk about things like flow and pull and scientific thinking. So we've added those in, and we'll be sending those out shortly. Any questions on?
Yeah, really.
Are there any questions on the curriculum that we can address as before we move on? I think we have anybody typing, so let's go ahead. Okay.
Well, we have we sent out that survey last week, and many of you have responded with some feedback, and we appreciate that. Two of the things that we tried to address in that survey relate to case studies and then the project follow-ups. We have been working for the last month or two on trying to improve some of the case studies that we can offer you to use in the workshops. And we've added many of them to the portal. One of the efforts that we've been trying to do is provide different industry focused case studies for each of the different workshops. And we've made some progress with some of the workshops. We still have more case studies that we need to gather and write for some of the workshops as well. But if you look in the portal under each one of the different workshops, say the Discover workshop, we've segmented them into the healthcare, the services, and then the manufacturing or general industries. And we are providing you with a case study as well as some teaching notes for each one of those case studies. And some of the feedback that we've received from the survey says that yes, you enjoy using the case studies as long as they can provide value to the attendee and the workshop as well. And we're hoping that the changes that we're making to those case studies will be able to accomplish that for you. Some of you actually recommended some case studies that you use as well, and so we're going to do some research and try and get access to those so that we can give you some options.
Yeah, I think something to keep in mind on that is we will be gathering data from the other side of that as well, from the attendees, to make sure that they are providing what the attendees need as well, not just what we think as facilitators they need. So
yeah, we'll include that in the evaluation and survey that you give to the attendees afterwards so that we can determine if it's effective or not. So, do you want to address the project follow-up?
Sure.
You want me to?
You go for it, Ken.
So we had an interesting discussion with an advertising agency that focuses on building brands. It's an agency called Mabbly, M-A-B-B-L-Y. And they believe that brands, given the digital world today, that if you try to pretend you're something out in the marketplace, but act differently within your organization, that eventually, given the digital marketplace that we have today, or the digital information, you're going to be found out. So you can pretend that you're customer friendly, but when you haul somebody off of an airplane, your actions speak much louder than your efforts to build a brand that is not backed up by your behaviors. So they have focused their brand building agency on ideal behaviors. And we were introduced to them through UL, who was they were a one-time affiliate and now continue to use Shingo within their organization, but not externally at all. But UL and Mabbly got together and focused on a lot of the ideal behaviors they want to see within their organization to build brands, and saw a lot of overlap between what they were doing with the Shingo trainings they were doing and with the ideal behaviors that they were trying to learn on brand building with Mabbly. And so they introduced us to them. And there's some things that are basically incompatible between what we do and what they do. They focus on habits, individual habits, more like a Stephen Covey, the 7 habits type of thing. And how can you improve the habits of individuals and how those individual habits can impact the workplace. By comparison, they don't focus on systems and behaviors and how the systems in an organization drive behaviors. They talk about purpose, but only purpose that aligns with the behaviors that you're experiencing. So they have a little bit different approach. But the one thing that intrigued us the most is when they start working with an organization to help them build a brand, they have developed a daily follow-up system that reminds people of a particular habit that they should be working on. You get an email at 8 o'clock in the morning and you commit to doing a particular behavior that day. And then later that night, you get an email follow-up saying, yes, I did it. No, I wasn't able to do it. And then after you finish a module, you're able to evaluate the module. And it got us thinking about, we should do something similar. When most of you, when you're teaching a workshop, ask for people to commit to doing something. Go back and fix this system, or go back and develop a system that accomplishes this. Most of what we've seen when we work with you is around system development, and we think that's appropriate. But it's hard to follow up. One of the things we get as feedback from you and from participants is, I get back to my workplace, I'm all gung-ho about doing something, and then I don't get around to doing it, and there's no follow-up. And we think that if we had a systematic follow-up similar to what Mably does with these habits, but we did it in terms of a project, we think it might be something that would be helpful to you, especially as you are in a position to be able to help them as they run into obstacles and as they go about trying to change a system or improve a system or build a new system of something or other. So what we are thinking of doing is building a systematic follow-up to the projects that they commit to in your workshops when you teach them. So you come to the end of a workshop, you go around the room, and we're proposing that we have them be specific and that these be recorded, that they say, for example, I am going to commit to changing our control quality at the source system in this place because we're still doing inspections. We need to figure out a way to make sure we don't make defects. So we've got to figure out a system to check, problem solve, error proof, eliminate the defects so that we don't have to do an inspection. That's just an example of something that they might commit to in the workshop. Then you can have a systematic follow-up to that where it might create opportunities for you to be able to help them and help prevent the frustration that they have, that they get too busy when they get back to work, not being able to follow up with what they've committed to. So our thought is to start thinking about how this system would look. We believe we have a tool that we can use, Salesforce, that we can use to create the system in. We would engage you in this because we think it's critical for you to be able to be there to help them. That's something that we can't do at the Shingo Institute. We can help create the system, but we can't do the follow-up. We're not organized to do consulting anyway. So our thought is that this would, if anything, help you with your consulting business, but it would more importantly help them with their ability to follow up and give them the encouragement and perhaps assistance when they need it. Thoughts?
Yeah, thoughts.
Is this something that you think is worthwhile? Bring my glass.
This of course would be managed on your end, so I mean that's something to keep in mind, and of course not everybody would want to participate, but this is one of those things that I think is better offered, and if they opt out, they opt out, but to have it offered, I think is really important.
A lot of the feedback from the survey was that you're interested in it, want to learn more, and we had one affiliate that actually recommended another avenue of a service that's already existing that we could include and provide as well. So I think we have some discussion points that we can kind of engage in and learn more about and share with you at a later date some of our research and what we've found. So read some of those comments.
Yeah, so Jess is asking on some of these things that are measured. So give us some ideas on the types of analytics you would be talking about, Jess.
Mm-hmm. Any analytics would be
It'd be interesting to see how much follow-up. I think they'll be able to give us feedback and say, no, I haven't been able to follow up, for example. They'll give us an idea of how many projects that they commit to actually get implemented. That would be good to know.
Yeah, so I think I see where you're going, Jess. You can tell me if I'm wrong. Right. So yeah, obviously the more they have trained, the better. I mean, this is follow up specifically with the person in the workshop. So I think what you're asking is how many of their staff are they following up with? Is that kind of what you're looking at, that the individual organization is actually measuring their staff? I think we're talking at two separate levels here, but I'm not sure. Okay, so you're saying take this to the next level and have them actually use it within their organization to follow up on their own staff. That's certainly, a potential option, that we can look at. So good point.
Well, it's probably good to know if they commit to do something. Good to let the rest of the organization know that they're committed to doing it too. Yeah.
Well, and you can commit, and what Jess is talking about is you can commit other people in the organization to the same thing. And Dimitri, to answer your question, yes, this is software. So the analytics that Jess is talking about would be easy to come up with once this begins. But yes, it is software.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's another great comment, Jess. I mean, and one of the reasons for doing this is if we all know if you leave the workshop and you don't do anything, it was just 2 days of another workshop.
Yeah.
And this would give us in the future the analytics to be able to provide and at least tell CEOs or other leaders that these are some of the things that are being done as people are leaving the workshop. So I think that is important.
Yeah, it seems that this might align with later standards.
Yeah, absolutely, Ted. That's a really good point. So, and that's exactly the direction we want to take this to have some analytics on the ROI of these types of workshops. So, great comments.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. So it sounds like we should move forward on this as quickly as possible and come up with some alternatives for being able to do this, and we'll do so.
Okay. The next item on the agenda refers to workshop evaluations, and we're kind of trying to make a movement away from paper evaluations, and we're trying to address that as much as we can because we are aware that in some locations you're not going to have access to the internet during the workshop. So we're trying to come up with some alternatives there. We're seeing a lot more of the affiliates using the online survey, which in our opinion is a much better evaluation form. There's a lot more data that we can capture, a lot of demographic information that's helping us with our marketing research. It's also allowing us to target our marketing after the workshop so that we can get people to move past just the Discover workshop. So we're trying to put a big plug to get as many affiliates as possible to use that online evaluation form. And then also a plug to get every affiliate to do some sort of evaluation after the survey so that we can monitor and do quality control with our facilitators and make sure that they're teaching the workshops the best way possible. We're working on some steps that will help us capture better information right from the beginning when an attendee registers for the course. We have some projects in mind that will help us resolve some of the issues that we're running into relating to information from each one of the attendees. And we'll be working on that and report back to you probably in our next webinar on some of our progress.
Yeah, and this is, you know, frankly, this is one of the most important things that we do. It's our ability to provide you the data of what attendees are telling us about the workshop. So we can not only provide that to you as a individual organization, so you can look at how all of your facilitators are doing, but we can look at it and say, what is it that we need to enhance? You know, as you all know, you're all in this business. Feedback is critical, and the more timely we get it, the better it is. So eventually, it will only be the online feedback that's available, and we'll be able to administer that from here so that we can analyze it, provide you the analytics on it, and as Jess put earlier, give you that so you have a better ability to sell the product and a better ability to move in and talk to leadership about what this product can do for their organization. So we need this feedback. It's critical to our quality control. It's critical to our advancing the curriculum. So it's a real important push that we'll be working on.
And one of the things that I recognize with the online evaluations is that we have not been providing you with the information that we capture. And so we will add that to our standard work, that we provide you with that information in a more timely manner so that you will get that feedback as well. I know a lot of you use the paper survey forms because you can see that instantly, and we will do a much better job of providing you that information from the online surveys. So, anything else?
Any questions on that section?
It may be worthwhile for you, especially when you're organizing a workshop, to see if there's a way you can connect to the internet as part of the setup. That's something we probably should change our standard workup on for our workshops, is see if you can arrange to make sure that there is an internet connection that people can use to be able to fill out the survey electronically. That would be a systemic approach to it.
Javier has a really good question here, and says that the fact is that online evaluations have a low response rate. Are we worried about it? Absolutely. Totally understand that. So one of the things that we're working on and looking at is connecting that to them receiving their certification that they've completed the workshop, which, you know, obviously people will want to get that. So that's one of the things we're looking at. Very good point.
All the more reason to try to do it at the close of the workshop.
Yeah, that's correct.
Before they leave.
And to be honest, we're getting very limited, even in the paper form, we're getting very limited amounts of evaluations back to us. So we think we can increase this significantly and get much better data. And I think Shauna had a question here on making it more user-friendly. Yeah, absolutely. We'll be looking at that as well. We want it to be as quick and painless as possible, but receive the data that we need to be able to give back to you and to use ourselves. Good points.
Shanna, is the issue with the online survey, is it that it's too long, or is it just too many questions? It is a longer survey versus the paper one, but we're trying to capture more demographic information as well. A lot of pages to click through.
Okay. We'll look at that.
We could streamline it so that it's not so many pages. So that's an option.
Absolutely.
But we do feel that perhaps tying the evaluation with the certificate is a good motivation for people to complete them. So let us know your thoughts on those lines as well.
All right.
Also, this one has to be able to skip questions. Okay. can give them the option to not have to answer
Not
every
respond,
question.
yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. In our last webinar, we introduced the ability that affiliates now, or facilitators now have to become examiners. And we've also introduced a role that allows some facilitators that have not met the examiner qualifications yet to actually participate on a site visit as an observer. And we've kind of detailed out those the process that we're going to do for that role. And we just thought we would kind of mention them to you briefly, and I can email more of the details out later. We've had a lot of facilitators interested in learning more about the assessment process. And we feel that you either serving as an observer or an examiner will provide you with a lot more experience along those lines. So if you are not a current examiner, but you would like to join an assessment team as an observer, you just need to let me know, and I will get with Julie Ball, who is our assessment coordinator. I will send you an NDA NSA form, which is our non-disclosure, non-solicitation form. Any examiner or observer needs to sign that form in order for them to participate. And then if you decide to serve as an observer, you will join the assessment team and participate in every aspect of the assessment, although your comments, you'll just kind of sit back and observe. You won't participate in the scoring in any way. You will just kind of be able to sit back and watch what happens on the assessment team. The biggest difference between an examiner and observer is that the observer is required to pay for their own expenses to participate on the assessment or the site visit. But we will notify you of any site visits that are in your area so that you can join a site visit that's closer, so you're not required to travel all around the world unless you want to. You're welcome to, but the expenses will be you will be responsible for those expenses as well, because we don't feel comfortable going back to the organization that's applying and asking them to pay for your expenses when your input doesn't have any impact on the overall score of the assessment. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think there's some real critical points here. One is keep in mind, and you'll get this on the non-disclosure form, but all of the assessments we do are confidential, and that's what this non-disclosure is. We don't tell the public who's applying and who isn't. So that's something to keep in mind. But the other thing is the benefit that this is to your ability to teach the curriculum. Once you see how the whole process of how this actually happens, I think, of course I'm biased, but I think this significantly increases your ability to be able to teach the material and understand it from an examiner's perspective. Many of the organizations that you'll be working with, some would like to challenge, some have no intent of challenge, some are building their own assessment products internally using the Shingo model and the Shingo assessment guidelines to enable you to better understand that. This is a great opportunity. And I know some of you are examiners, and maybe you have comments on that, on how that enhances the experience, but I think it's a tremendous benefit to be able to understand how this whole process works, what it looks like, and how it's facilitated in an actual organization with a large group of examiners. So, and here's a comment from Ted, who is an examiner for oh my gosh, a long time. I don't even know the number of years. Sorry, Ted, but it's a lot of years. And he says that, it's hard to imagine teaching a Shingo workshop without having the examiner experience. There he goes, 1995. So it's been a long time through the model changes and all of that in Ted's case. And it's just a significant experience and will give you capabilities, I think, that that you haven't thought of. But I don't know if there's anything you want to add to
No,
that.
I think
But
that nails it. We want to give you opportunities. This idea we had to create a non-solicitation part of it is what was kind of the obstacle that we needed to solve. And we appreciate you jumping on the opportunities. We've had several of you that have been able to go out as observers now, and we think that's great. We want that to continue because we think it'll benefit, especially those of you who are fairly new to Shingo and have not had a chance to become an examiner yet.
yeah, it's really, I mean, the way I look at it is it's an investment into your ability to be able to teach the curriculum. I'm not, you know, another thing to keep in mind is the reason we had to come up with this. We have a very specific way that we design teams, and on each team we put no more than one new examiner. So if you look at that, if we end up this year with, say, somewhere around 15 site visits, that's only the opportunity for 15 new examiners to get on a site visit team. This is a very small, limited group. It's hard to become a Shingo examiner because of not only the time it takes, but the experience that people have to have. So this really opens up a great opportunity for people to be, well, for affiliates. It's only being offered to affiliates and facilitators.
Well,
so.
we want you to know that you are the priority. We want to make sure this happens because we want you to have a better understanding of the examination process so that you can teach it better when you do the workshops.
Absolutely.
The observers will still need to meet the conflict of interest
That's correct.
qualification that we have. We're not going to allow you to observe an assessment that is in the same
Company
corporation. You know, say you worked with one facility in one country and you could not go to another facility within the same corporation. We want to avoid any conflict of interest as much as possible. But we are opening it up so that we can have one observer on every assessment team. So I think your options of participating have just increased significantly.
And Amy brings up a good point, and you'll see all of that on the NDA. So, so if you have any questions about conflicts of interest or the NDA, please let us know.
Yeah. But if you're interested in serving as an observer, just get with me, and I will get the process started for you. So, okay. One of the other things number 6 on the agenda is continuing education units. This is something that we have offered for many years. I'm sure it's probably something that many of you aren't aware of, but on your certificates that you give out to the participants, below the name of the workshop, there's been like a code or something that has the CPE or the CEU number next to it. We have now converted over to a new process that Utah State University administers here on campus, and we are continuing to offer those credits for anyone that needs certification for different things that they use that are geared towards their industry specific positions. But now we're ministering it here on campus. We have removed the codes off of all the certificates, and it's just a class code, and it's not going to expire like the other ones have. The other ones were only good for 12 months, so we would have to update the certificates frequently. But the class code is going to stay the same from now on, so you won't need to do a new certificate every time. But one thing I do need to make you aware of is that because Utah State administers it, you just need to let the attendee know to get in touch with me, and I will send them all of the information if they're looking for the credits. For a 2-day workshop, they can earn up to 1.6 CEUs, and I don't know what a normal renewal would require.
Well, and this depends on their association or who they're getting their certification through. because they have to cover that with their association to make sure that they will be able to use these. So what Amy just brought up, the one critical point is you won't be able to use the old certificates.
No.
The old certificates have the wrong information on it, just as the old training is the old training, and it needs to come off of, whatever hard drive we're all guilty of putting it on. And we were even looking at some of our stuff the other day, and had to make sure that we had the newest material on it. So it really is a benefit to always download the newest material. Otherwise, your attendees are going to be getting things that are outdated.
So the process is very simple for attendees to get those CEUs. They need to complete a form that I will send them, and then they need to pay the fee. I think for a 2-day workshop for the CEUs, it's $48. The 3-day workshop, I think, is around $72, but that allows them to work towards their association certification requirements. So that's all I have, unless either one of you have something we need to cover, or if you guys have any questions you'd like to bring up in the webinar. Or otherwise, feel free to email me and let me know if you have any questions, and we can always discuss them.
Amy, this is Dimitri. Hello?
On how long is the lead time for the examiner application process? We put, as Ken said, we put priority on affiliates. But even with that priority, there are other things that come into play when we set up teams. So even if a potential examiner were available all the time, there could still be conflicts of interest. We only have one examiner per team, or one brand new examiner per team. So as they move up the ranks as an examiner, it becomes easier to place people based on availability and what we need on specific teams. So it's hard to give an exact time of how long it takes to get through the entire process to actually become an examiner, but it's in the neighborhood of 1 to 2 years to actually be on the roll as a Shingo examiner. Now that doesn't mean you haven't gone on a site visit, because remember, an examiner does not become an examiner on our website until they've actually gone through a site visit and received approval via the evaluations from the entire team. So we use that evaluation process not only to bring new examiners on, but also to take examiners that are no longer performing up to the level to take them off of the examiner list. So we're constantly reviewing that list to make sure that the teams that we are sending out meet the expectation of those organizations that are challenging. So I hope that answers it, Javier. If not, you're always welcome to send me a direct email as well, or call me up, either one. So I've got a lot of those types of questions out there. We field those all the time. So.
And it came here a question about sending the CEU information in an email. Is yes, I will definitely do that. I'll include it with the link to the webinar recording, and kind of detail out some things that we may have skipped over in this meeting. We'll follow up with those as well. So we will plan for our next webinar October. We'll do October.
October will be tight.
Pretty tight.
There may be
we'll
a day in the office.
1 or 2 maybe. So, but I'll let you know that information as we get closer. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks for all you do.
Sure,
great talking to everyone. And please, if there's any questions, please send them to us. Happy to answer them.